Thank you. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Commissioner Look,
Here.
Commissioner Breasted,
Here.
Commissioner West,
Here.
Commissioner Schulte,
Here.
Commissioner Meisner,
Here.
Commissioner Gamache,
Here.
Commissioner Reiner.
Here.
Perfect. All present and accounted for. Next, we will move on to consider accepting the regular claims paid over $500 and purchase card claims paid for the period ending March 27th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Brasted, second by Commissioner West. Any other comments or corrections, questions? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Breasted,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner,
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, we will look for approval of the minutes from both March 24th and March 31st of this year for our special county board meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Look. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Any questions or comments? I will just comment that those were obviously different meetings for us and how they were held and monitored and processed. And I really want to thank staff for doing such a thorough job on the minutes. I read through each of them and they were very accurate. And it's one where there could be questions because there was some remote contact in one of those meetings. And so it was important that the minutes were reflected perfectly, and as usual, they were. No further comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are adopted. Next, we will move on to chair's remarks. I think we'll start with an update from Terry Stoltzman, our emergency manager. He can update us on the situation with the current pandemic and what we're doing in Anoka County. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just before I forget, I got a couple informational pieces. This week is actually Severe Weather Awareness Week. We can't forget that we're approaching severe weather season, so just a reminder, this Thursday is the outdoor warning siren test at 1:45 and again at 6:45, so don't be alarmed if you're hearing that outside on Thursday. It's just our normal annual Severe Weather Awareness Week drill and test. Normally it'd be for those that are inside, but with many that stay at home, they might hear it twice and wondering what's going on. The only way that would be postponed is if we did have an event of severe weather, but it looks like it's going to be low temperatures that day. And then the other thing is our partners down in Central Communication and throughout the state and the nation, it's Telecommunicators Week. Those first responder heroes that guide us through the daily lives that we all go if we have to call 911. It's their week, so we want to recognize them also. As your emergency manager, I want to just report that this is a marathon, as we all know, living through the stay-at-home order in Minnesota, looking at the news every day, what's going on around us in the states, at the federal level, all the planning that goes on. But our first responders, those fire, EMS, law enforcement partners, continue to have that continuity of operations. Services are being delivered. Not only as for first responders, but our own county employees, those cities and that township that we have in Anoka County continue to work. We have continuity of government, as you can see illustrated by this meeting today. We do have order that we have in the state of Minnesota and Anoka County. We still move along in this very unusual way where we're processing things. We still have issues though. We still have issues with personal protective equipment. We're working on solutions. As you heard the president last week, working with the CDC as guidance around cloth masks, and I know some of our commissioners are making their own. We have citizens out in Anoka County that are making them available not only to the county but to our partners, so that's very much appreciated as we navigate this new world. But we're always looking for that PPE. Many donations have come in through different sources. Inverhill Community College yesterday donated a cache of supplies to go to the cause. Home Depots and other businesses have donated at the local level in our communities. We want to make sure it gets out to those cities that they're primarily involved with first, and then making it available to the various work that we do that require that type of personal protective equipment. But I just want to assure you that we're continuing on this marathon, working every day with our partners. We have our twice daily calls with all the cities and township. It's well attended for those that have not been on those calls. A lot of good questions, a lot of good information. The governor's executive order on Friday is one of those results. We're looking at first responder protections, trying to know a little bit more information, and that comes from some of those calls and questions that we see. and we forward that on to MDH and through the Commissioner of Public Safety, as concerns, and those are addressed at the governor's level. But I'd entertain it if there's any questions that the commissioners have. Good work is being done, continues to be done. We don't anticipate that will change. We are seeing a slight increase in infections in Anoka County, but I think when you look at overall in Minnesota, we're probably the lowest in the nation. I think the stay-at-home order, personally, I think it is working with our partners in healthcare and working with the people that are doing the modeling at the U. But we'll see how this progresses in the next couple weeks to month.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions for Terry? Thank you again, Terry. Our second item under Chair's remarks today is, this is the week usually where we'd have Dr. Quinn Strobel present her annual report from the medical examiner's office. But due to the current situation we find ourselves in, they are busy and we think it's better to keep them working over there. And so you have a report in your packet of the usual. You will note a couple of differences. This year we had 5 homicides in Anoka County in 2019. However, our suicides were down with 34 last year compared to 2018 when we had 45. So there's one little nugget of good news amongst all the rest. So read through that report when you get a chance. It's always got interesting data, and Dr. Strobel has a great way of presenting it, but she won't be doing that for us this year. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to either her or Gary Alberts, and they'll be able to answer your questions. With that does conclude Chair's reports, and we will move on to committee reports, and we will start with the Management Committee Chair report. Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 items. The first is to restructure, we don't have restructure in administration, facilities, management, and construction. We are restructuring from a 1 FTE maintenance electrician grade CO 12 to 1 FTE master plumber grade B 111.
Is there a motion to approve? Move it. Motion by Commissioner Look. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner West and Commissioner Meisner.
We have made the decision to hire a plumber because it saves a lot more money than contracting out every time we have a need for a plumber. And so this other position is vacant, and it makes it a smooth transition.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so I noticed the cost savings for this, and my only question is, so we do not have a master plumber currently at all?
That's correct, Commissioner
Okay.
Meisner. We do not.
Perfect.
This will be our first master plumber that we've ever had in Anoka County that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Any further questions? There is a motion and a second on the floor. With that, we will have a roll call vote.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look, Commissioner Breasted.
Aye.
That item passes. Your next item.
Our last item is to consider a request from Facilities Management and Construction to offer a salary for a master plumber position, grade B 111, and it will be above the 3rd quartile. That is the decision.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look, Commissioner Breasted,
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
And that item passes.
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Next, we'll move on to the Transportation Committee's Chair Report. And I have for you a number of items. First, as the Chair of the Committee, I recommend approval of a resolution authorizing the preparation of a highway right-of-way plat for the reconstruction of Fawn Lake Drive between Typo Creek Drive and Rutgers Street in Linwood Township. Is there an offer of the resolution?
Move to approve.
There's an offer of the resolution by Commissioner Reinert. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That item passes. Secondly, I would recommend that we approve a resolution authorizing the acquisition of right-of-way for the reconstruction of Fawn Lake Drive between Typo Creek Drive and Rutgers Street in Linwood Township. This is the same project, we're just actually authorizing the acquisition of the right-of-way as opposed to preparing the right-of-way plat. Is there an offer of the resolution?
I'll move approval of this one as well.
The resolution has been offered. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, this one is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look, Commissioner Breasted, Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. And that item passes. Next, we're going to look at a number of items, and these are for the regional solicitation through the Metropolitan Council. The following resolutions, we're looking for approval of the following resolutions for the authorization to submit federal applications for federal funding through the Metropolitan Council's 2020 regional solicitation for improvements to the following highways. The first resolution is for 44th Avenue Bridge, or County State Aid Highway 2, which is a pedestrian trail over that bridge in Fridley. It would be a multi-use trail for bicycle facility category. This is actually the very long bridge that goes over the top of the Northtown rail yards. And the current pedestrian facility on that bridge is substandard at best. It's far too narrow, it's hard to maintain. It's almost considered dangerous, I would think. So this would help us improve that facility. The second resolution is for the expansion of 7th Avenue from a quarter-mile north of Bunker Lake Boulevard to County Road 20 in Andover. It's in the roadway expansion category. Next would be a resolution for County State Aid Highway 11, or Northdale Boulevard, modernization from Hanson Boulevard to Foley Boulevard in Coon Rapids. And this would be under the reconstruction modernization category. The next resolution, Resolution D, is for County State Aid Highway 12, or 109th Avenue Northeast, and that expansion from Radisson Road to Lexington Avenue in Blaine, and this is under roadway expansion category. And then the next resolution is for County State Aid Highway 14, or 125th Avenue Northeast, which is an expansion from approximately 0.15 miles east of Harper Street to Lexington Avenue in Blaine. This is the roadway expansion category. Again, an extension of a project we've been working on for the last few years. And then the final one would be a resolution for County State Aid Highway 56, or Ramsey Boulevard, and US 10 interchange in Ramsey, and this is under the roadway expansion category. So we have items 3A through F that we will be submitting for application, and Commissioner Look will be on the committee at the Transportation Advisory Board that helps select these projects. So hopefully we can get some traction on these items, and with that, I would offer all resolutions under item 3A through F. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Gamache.
just a quick question. On the Northdale proposal, it was called modernization. Is there a definition of what that might actually be? Does that mean we widen, or does it just mean something totally different?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Gamache. I will turn to the two experts in the room. Either Joe McPherson or Matt Look can answer this question.
Mr. Chair, board member, yes, so modernization is a little different than roadway expansion. Expansion would be your typical 2 to 4 lane expansion, interchange expansion, that type of project. Modernization includes adding turn lanes, channelization, that type of stuff. Doesn't always mean that we're going to increase it from a 2 to 4 lane roadway. It may just include medians and turn lanes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Perfect. Item 3A through F is approved. And then item 4, we'd like to consider authorizing the county engineer to advertise for bids on a multi-agency joint effort project to place bituminous surfacing on several parking areas at the National Sports Center in the city of Blaine. If you recall, this is part of a project that came about with the advent of the 3M Open. So this is the continuation of that contract where both Blaine and us, as Anoka County, are splitting the cost of these parking lots. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that item passes. Next, let's go ahead and finish this regular agenda before we jump into the other agenda. Let's move on to the Parks Report. Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Parks Chair recommends that the county board authorize grant agreement not to exceed $140,000 with the Mississippi River Watershed Management Organization, the MWMO, for natural resource-related work as part of the Islands of Peace Trail Improvement Project. This is Anoka County Contract C0007852, and this is part of the work that we are doing to fix up some of the trail areas at the Islands of Peace Trail, and this was a contract that we have with the Watershed Management Organization.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Look. Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West. Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
And that item passes.
Mr. Chair, item number 2 is a difficult one. I am recommending that the Bunker Beach Water Park close for the upcoming 2020 water park season due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With recent consultation with the county administrator and the county park director, we've decided that due to the public health and safety reasons from COVID, it is very likely that there will be some restrictions on large groups of people well into the summer. And as you can see by the picture, if that's showing up on your screen right now, even though you're in water, there is going to be a large group of people congregating at Bunker Beach during the summer months. We average, I want to say, and Jeff can correct me, it's around 1,300 to 1,600 per day, somewhere in that ballpark, I guess. And even though there are some reports that chlorinated water would kill the COVID virus, you still have people at concession stands, in restrooms, sitting down at park tables and with their families and things like that. And I would expect that even though we may see the stay-at-home order lifted at some point in time, maybe after May 4th, maybe after the end of May, it's likely that large groups will still have restrictions on them. Weddings, different events like that may not be allowed or be suggested not to have large groups of people over 250 or 500 people. And obviously, when in order to make Bunker Beach work financially, we do need to have those large crowds. We do need to have 1,300, 1,400 people there on a weekday, and maybe 1,600 there on a weekend. So it seems that it would make sense that at this point in time, instead of going through all the hiring that we have to do to get ready for the summer, it would also give us an opportunity to perhaps start construction or some kind of reconstruction of the work that needs to be done on Bunker Beach early. We were going to do it at the end of September, at the end of this year, which would have been September of 2020, right after Labor Day. Now we might have the opportunity to move that up a little bit, get some better times into August or something if we have it shut down. So that is my recommendation, and I don't know, we need a motion on that, don't we?
We will, yes.
Okay. I will make the motion as part of the recommendation.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner West?
I understand the reasoning that you have in this, and I know I've had discussions regarding it and been open-minded. But as I've thought about it in the last few weeks, the virus is slowing down, and I know I'm not a health expert, but what I've been hearing since the beginning of February is the best way to deal with this disease is to wash your hands, and of course not touch your face. Well, when people are in a swimming pool that's treated, they're constantly being wet. And we all know how wrinkly our hands and feet get when we're in the swimming pool, that to me, it's a constant cleansing. I believe that, according to what the experts have told us these months and weeks, this is going to slow down. It's not going to disappear, but I think this is a low-risk situation. And as far as the concession stands, maybe this would be a time we can allow people to bring picnics in with them if they want to eat while they're there. I just think that there's so much shutdown of everything for such a long period of time. This would be an opportunity for people to make a choice in their own life if they would want to participate in this. So I just can't support closing it because I just think it's going to be way different in 2 months, and I think it's a safe risk. I will go in, but I'll put a bag over my head.
Thank you, Commissioner West. I would just comment that, the concern for me, whether it's health-related or not, is could we even fill the pool this time of year? Could we get enough people there knowing what's just happened? Will they come? And if they don't, we have a huge red mark on the ledger. As Commissioner Gamache aptly pointed out, 1,400 to 1,600 people a day is what we need, and that's what we get in a good year. Arguably, there's going to be some pent-up aggression when this all goes away, but there will also be an abundance of caution. There will be a lot of people that want to get back to normal but aren't willing to jump into a big crowd yet. This is a big crowd. 1,400 to 1,600 people is a lot of people. I'm as concerned about our employees there as I would be about the constituents. I also know that grandmas and grandpas spend a great deal of time there with the grandkids. They bring them there and they don't get in the water. They don't get to get disinfected. They would have to be super vigilant, and that may become a challenge. So getting past the financial part of it would be really hard for me. Getting past the health part of it, I knew you did make the comment that the virus is slowing down, except last night we had the highest increase in Anoka County we've had so far, overnight, last night. So it's not slowed down here. We've stretched out this curve a long ways, and it may be ramping up yet. I am not an alarmist. I think our health department's doing a great job. We are creatures of the state, though, and I want everybody to understand that. Counties are creatures of the state. When the state makes a decision, we're forced to live by it. We're forced to act under it. So therefore, it's not really our choice. The governor has a stay-at-home order. The governor has the order that you won't congregate in large groups, and we will continue to enforce that at a local level to some extent. But as it relates to the water park directly, I am in support of the motion. I think opening halfway through the season or even 25% of the way into the season, we're destined for a failure, and I don't think we need to do that. We've got a big repair coming there. I think we move ahead with the repair and come out on the other side fresh and brand new and ready to take it on. Commissioner Reinhardt, then Commissioner Meisner.
Yeah, actually, I sympathize with Commissioner West's position on this, and the Park Board did consider. We had Jeff Perry, the Director of Parks, put together 2 scenarios, and one would be to close it down altogether or to open it up in July. I actually favored the opening up in July initially, but then looking at the reality and what you just shared with us, the fact that you're just probably not going to have those numbers that we need to be profitable. And then there's the hiring dilemma as well, and just getting the people in there just for that half of the summer. I concluded that the closing was the right move because in reality you'd have it opened in July. You'd probably have a difficulty hiring and filling those positions that needed to be in there for employment. You'd lose money. And like you said too, we have a large reconstruction of the park coming this fall, and there is an advantage to getting a jump on that. So I just, adding it all up, just I didn't want to support closing it all summer. I'm kind of an optimist. And think as well as Commissioner West that things are going to get better, but it made sense to close it. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Reiner. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I just want to first of all thank the Parks Committee for this tough decision. I do support it. I think it is the right thing to do for public health. And for me, that is the driver around this, and not so much about profitability. For some of the comments with Commissioner West, while again, I personally understand the sentiments of being cooped up and businesses being closed down, part of the reason, the science, is that the numbers are managed right now because this virus is extremely infectious. So really, unless there's a vaccine or a treatment for COVID-19, we will have to be in this holding management pattern, as far as I can tell from, again, the science that's been told. I do have one question, though, about the financials. So with it being completely closed down, is it, I don't know, is it like a wash then in terms between not hiring staff and having operating expenses, or will we be, what does that look like with it being closed for the entire season?
I think we'll turn to Jeff Perry for an answer, if you could help us, Jeff.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jeff Perry, Park Director for Anoka County. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Meisner, the biggest cost in terms of the operating budget is the debt service. There's $455,000 payment for current debt service for the Lazy River expansion. So that's about the biggest hit to the budget right there. There is, a lot of cost savings with staff operating from maintenance to concessions to guest services to lifeguards to certifications to trainings. So there's a ton of staff savings there. And in addition, utilities costs will be greatly reduced, and then insurance allocations will be there because the facility will still need to be insured. But short of that, I think across the board that we have to pay that debt service back, and short of that, everything else beyond that is a wash. So. In terms of the recommendation before you, I think at the end of the day, it's a fiscally wise decision to close, for sure, in addition to public health and safety concerns, too. It's the largest outdoor water park in Minnesota. It's very popular. People love to come, from all over the globe. People come to Bunker Beach. We have the World Cup at the National Sports Center, et cetera. So we do serve a large number of people annually, on average about 118,000 visitors a year come to Bunker Beach Water Park. Our actual water park capacity is 2,800. So on any given day, you could have 2,800 guests at the water park, plus 54 staff that operate the water park. So in terms of social distancing, it makes it very, very difficult to social distance in a facility like that. It's an atmosphere where there's high densities. You can see on the image before you. The World Water Park Organization has come out and made a statement that the virus does not live in properly treated water, but I think the issue is when people are outside of the water. They're in lines to use the restroom facility, to get into the facility, to mingle within the facility. It would make it very difficult with 2,800 people in a relatively small footprint to effectively sustain social distancing.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just in follow-up too with the construction, I am really pleased to hear that we will continue to move forward with that. Obviously, if we delayed that, then the cost of construction a year from now or 2 years from now just only increases. So I am pleased to hear that, even though it sounded like perhaps there might be an adjustment around that, but still some projects will be moving forward for what's already on schedule.
Yes,
Perfect.
Commissioner West and then Commissioner Gamache, if you want to reply to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of my thought, excuse me, as I've been thinking about this for a few days, is that I think when I heard Minneapolis is shutting down all of their stuff and somewhere else they were thinking about it, they hadn't made the decision yet. If everybody else is shutting down stuff, I feel like that will provide the population. Obviously, this isn't going to be supported. I just would like to support my thinking. And getting in and out of the water back, once you get cleansed in that. That's what they've been telling us for these weeks and months. So I just, again, feel like it's a low risk and it's giving people a choice, and it gives the people who might choose to work for us a choice whether they will or not. But anyway, I've always been more of a risk taker than a lot of people. That's why I ran for this office, one of the biggest risks I ever took. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Commissioner Gamache, would you like to respond a little bit to the possible breadth of reconstruction?
Yes. We obviously have a large plan that this board has approved, and we have not signed any contracts, so we haven't gone through that portion of it. So we are looking at some other options if possible, with the very realization that we're in a real fiscal crisis, across the nation. So that might change the way we look at some things. We realize that there are things that need to be done at Bunker Beach in order to move forward and have a 2021 season. Just for the fact that we know that there's issues, and we did some corrective work on it a year ago to get it ready for this season. And so we know we need some work to be done. Now, the question is, do we continue with the expansion portion of that? Do we do some of that work? And I think Administrator Sivaraja and I talked a little bit about bringing this to the Finance Committee meeting in a week to have some more discussion about where we go and what we should do, taking into account the very real financial issues that the county's going to face. I do believe there will be some construction work done this year to get those things fixed and do some of that, but at what level we're not really sure at this point in time.
Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one other follow-up question with the $450,000 debt service to the lazy river. So would the state then be offering at some point some kind of leniency or relief for our county, since this is directly affected because of COVID-19 and we're in a state of emergency?
Well, the bond isn't with the state. The bond is with the private market. We owe them the money.
Okay.
So I don't believe there will be any leniency on paying that bond back.
Okay.
We will have to pay that bond back in our regularly scheduled payments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the item? Oh, Commissioner Look, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to weigh in on this, and just to show my full cards at this point, I'm not a cancel summer person. Okay, I think we're going to have a lot of people that want to get out and after this coop up and enjoy summer. It's going to happen widespread, and I'm not sure if we're going to have large group mandates, where you can't get together as where we may not, and I'm not sure I'm ready to make a decision based on what may or may not happen. The one thing about this virus is, and I think it was clear early on, is that while we have stay-at-home orders and things of this nature, it's not going to slow the spread of it. You're still going to more than likely get it. And 80 to 90% are going to be asymptomatic, which means they're not going to have severe reactions to this virus. And if we know anything about the flu and viruses, we know that it mutates. So what you have this year will be different than what you have next year, and there's plenty of evidence out there that this thing's not going away. Okay? You will not eradicate this, and while you may have some sort of, vaccine this year, you'll probably need something like what the flu has, where you'll need something different next year, and it'll be a guessing game like everything else. So unless we plan on shutting everything down indefinitely, I just don't see the purpose, I guess. Further information that we've had is that it's going to be exponential numbers. That's a percentage of numbers, and we've not seen exponential. So the models that have been out there, I've mentioned this to people certainly we've been discussing, and residents that have been concerned on Facebook. I have an epidemiologist in the family, actually, that we've had extensive conversations with, and the numbers, the modeling is based on assumptions. They're all assumptions in the beginning. And there isn't an epidemiologist that doesn't say that they're all wrong, but they're worst case. And as new data comes in, you are able to refine those numbers, and you're able to get into a more clearer picture, and I think that's happening. The problem is I don't think people are responding to the new data. They're still staying back on the worst case scenario, and they're planning everything according to that, and they're spending ungodly amounts of money, of which we'll be talking about further here. And it's something that I think that is panic-driven, fear-based, and I think the media has a significant role in that. And so from that standpoint, I'm not going to support closing this at this point. If there's certainly if the governor mandates that we need to have large groups, and that comes out, then I guess we need to follow that authority. But we haven't heard that yet, and I don't quite understand how, from a financial standpoint, we can say that this property pretty much breaks even. From what I understand, it used to make some money, but pretty much breaks even. That's based on revenue and expenses, but one of our major expenses is, of course, our debt service. So we're going to be actually running in the red on this one if we do nothing. So from a financial standpoint, we will not avoid the deficit that we're going to experience on this. From a construction standpoint, if we're talking about shutting things down and we know that viruses mutate, I think we need to put the construction on hold, because it's not going to serve much purpose to build out a $6+ million amenity that no one wants to use going forward in the future if we're going to continue to operate based on fear-based decision making. So that being said, I'm not going to, so we cancel every single beach and every single wave pool and every single park out there and every single. What do you think people are going to do? They're still going to congregate. That's what's going to happen. So I'm not sure that this is a solution, nor am I sure some of the other things that we're going to address here are solutions either.
Thank you, Commissioner Look. Commissioner Reinert, then Commissioner Meisner.
So there's not, unanimous opinion on this topic. And so today is April 14th. I think that there would be unanimous support to not open it right away. I don't know. I guess I'd have to ask the people that, showed dissent on this action. So my question is, what's the drop dead date for making a decision? What's the sense of urgency for deciding today? Can we wait a while to see how this thing progresses over the next 2 to 4 to 6 weeks, and then make a decision whether to shut it down all summer long, or maybe go to Plan B that we did discuss on the park committee, which was to open it in July? Do we have to make a decision on the shutdown of the entire summer right now? And so my question is the sense of urgency to making that decision today, and can we wait a while before making that decision?
I would address that to say there is a sense of urgency in that we have to hire staff and we have to train them. And I believe that's the reason we'd have to make a decision now as opposed to next month. Because if we wait till next month, we don't have enough time to hire them and train them. At least that's my understanding. And Jeff, if I'm incorrect, please straighten me out, but if that's accurate.
That's, Mr. Chair, members of the board, that is accurate. As I had indicated, there's 150 seasonal staff that we hire. We've already conducted many of those interviews. We have not made any position offers at this point. But once those offers are made, then we need to move into the training certification phase that needs to, we're already behind right now in terms of timing, offering the positions, getting people trained up effectively, critical positions, life safety related positions where they need to be trained and confident going into the projected opening of the season.
Thank you, Jeff. Follow-up, Commissioner Reiner.
Yeah, my follow-up would be, so I understand that this would be the normal time, I'm assuming, that you would go into that routine of interviewing and hiring people. April makes sense, I guess, for the opening of this in a normal opening, which would be earlier in the summer. But would you go through that routine for an opening in July? It would seem to me, if you're not going to open all summer long, but halfway through the summer, that you'd have some leeway or some extra time to I guess get that staff together if all of a sudden a month from now or 6 weeks it looked like things were going to be better and you could open it up halfway through the summer. You'd start that routine months from now, right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reiner, yes, we could delay that. However, the attractiveness, we hire many college students, many high school students. They're looking to, position themselves for employment right now. And if we delay till July, I would anticipate we're going to run into some challenges to effectively fill all of those positions.
Commissioner Meisner, then Commissioner Breasted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't want to belabor this too much. We're somewhat in disagreement with how we view this, and that's okay. To Commissioner Look's, some of his commentary, I would just say that look at New York, look at the other places in the world. The media is covering this because this is the biggest public health pandemic in our generation. So there's good cause for that. And as far as, I'm just going to go back to supporting the original proposal here, it is financially painful, it's true, but it is the right thing to do for public health. These are people's lives, and I will be supporting closing it for the summer.
Commissioner Breasted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just out of the gate, I feel that we are a little premature on making this decision for the entire year. I would be more comfortable to wait and see what the governor does. Right now, we're looking at a perhaps May 4th date of changing the shelter at home. Even if we delay a few weeks in our hiring and decide to open at a later date, I'd be a little more comfortable doing that. And I think going back to a couple things Commissioner Look said, we're not hearing the numbers that 80 to 90% of the people that even if they get COVID-19, they come through it and they're fine. If we were open, I would look to people to have some personal responsibility. If you're vulnerable, if you're susceptible to respiratory issues, then maybe this isn't your place to go. But I do have a feeling that we would be able to put precautions in place to open and function and give people a place to go and have some fun with their family. We know that the virus it spreads less in the warmer weather, and with the sterilized, high chlorinated water, I think this would be a good bet for people to have some outdoor activity. I will be opposing the motion today as it sits.
Commissioner West.
I just rethought the concession stands. If we can go pick up food at Panera or McDonald's or wherever else, we could manage our concession stands in the way that we have been all through this time.
Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to, and Jeff made a point that was of interest as well when he talked about the sports center and the amount of soccer tournaments going on. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't heard of major cancellations of anything yet, so I'm not positive if that's going to happen. But I've got a feeling that it is. That we'll probably see major cancellations at the Blaine Center, and that's obviously a big draw in the summertime. And as the chair of the Parks Committee, I was bringing this forward so that I wouldn't end up being the the mayor of Amity in the movie Jaws when he denied that the shark was in town. So I wanted to make the point that this is serious, that I believe it's going to be spread about. And the other thing I wanted to point out too, when we talked about why we plan to do it now, one of the aspects of I think of the number of people that come to Bunker Hills to go camping in the summertime. A lot of those people are probably there to enjoy for the week or whatever amount of time they're there, the wave pool. And they are making some reservations. Some people are doing that. Some people are already canceling. And I would not want to have something floating out there to tell them, yeah, come on to Bunker. We'll have the beach open maybe in July, maybe early June. I don't know exactly what time we're going to have it open, but we'll have it open maybe. That would irritate me if I was making my reservations and not knowing that up front, that this is a possibility. So I like to be up front with the people that are going to be coming to the park. You could still enjoy Bunker Beach for some aspects of it. We are doing some work as well on the campground to make sure that if there are still social distancing issues that we have to deal with, that we're making sure that they can deal with that at the different campgrounds. Just to make sure that everybody is staying as safe as possible. But I would rather not be the one saying, oh yeah, by the way, when we told you that in May that we were going to have it open, we changed our mind at the end of May, and now it's not open. And we'll still give you your money back. That's the nice thing to do. But at the same time, that might, irritate some people that have respected us and camped with us for many years and would like to come back in the future. So I'd hate to lose good customers like that. I just have a feeling that we are not going to see the numbers this summer, no matter what. Yeah, there are going to be some people out there. There's a lot of lakes in the state of Minnesota, so they can definitely go swimming there. But this really closes people in. I mean, if you can get on a boat and jump in the middle of a lake somewhere, you're not being closed. You're not swimming with another 200, 300 people or 1,200 people. So that's kind of the point, that it is going to need to have a lot of people there, because that's how we make money and break even to that point. So we are going to lose more money, in my opinion, if we try to be open, because the numbers are not going to be there. I don't believe. Right now, I was just listening this morning, Major League Baseball is trying to make some decisions as to where to go. In the Tokyo leagues, they are opening their season with no fans. They are going to have cardboard cutouts and maybe robotics in the crowd to make it look like they have a crowd. So I would expect that Major League Baseball will probably do the same thing. There will not be any crowds in the Major League Baseball park sometime this summer. Maybe by the end of the summer, I don't know. But just looking at what they're all considering at this point in time, they've already pretty much canceled the basketball season, the hockey season, the golf season. You name any other sport that is supposed to be being played right now. And on some of those, you could have people golfing with no fans. That would be pretty easy to do, but they've even canceled those. So how do I see these things changing in the next few months? I don't. I think we're going to be in this same ballpark well into June. And then it's just a matter of how fast we can get people to work. And I don't think we can.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. I just have a little bit of concern. We know that our unemployment numbers are ramping up to an all-time high and continue to climb at this point. And so I start to wonder if people will be able to afford to use Bunker Beach if we do open it. I guess I'm not going to pontificate anymore here. I think we'll just go to a vote and see where we land. There is a motion and a second before us to close Bunker Beach for the 2020 season. And we are going to, although it's not necessary here, we are going to do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert?
Aye.
Commissioner Look?
Opposed.
Commissioner Brasted?
Opposed.
Commissioner West?
Opposed.
Commissioner Schulte?
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner?
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache?
Aye.
And the motion passes. We will be closing Bunker Beach for the 2020 season. I actually, in the end, hope we're all wrong. I hope we made the wrong decision. The virus goes away and we're back healthy a month from now and everybody's back on the streets and we get started with our reconstruction project a year ahead of time. That's going to be the downside. And of course, the $450,000 debt service that we have to pay. Of course, that gets paid either way. It's just we don't have revenue to offset it. So with that said, that completes the additional Parks Committee. Commissioner Lick.
Mr. Chair, so seeing as this just passed, then do we want to discuss the urgency of this construction project? In light of the fact that we don't know how finances are going to roll out, we just heard that, state aid dollars are probably going to be coming in significantly lower, and revenues, of course, are down at the license centers and everything else. I mean, the whole revenue stream is at risk.
Commissioner Lick, that'll be coming before your Finance Committee at its next meeting.
I understand that. That was mentioned earlier, but I think it's important to discuss it here and now since we brought it up and talked about it.
Okay. Continue.
So the very issue that we'd want to spend, and correct me if I'm wrong, is at $6 million, $6.5 million. When we really don't know what the future looks like, I think is somewhat of a gambling position that I'm not sure I'm willing to take at this point. And I think it's more prudent at this point to keep powder dry, that being cash on hand. And while the interest rates may be good out there, they still require debt service to pay them back. And so given that, we have various different projects, some of which are public safety related and probably need to be addressed, but other projects of which I would classify as nice, but not necessarily needed at this juncture. And I'm thinking that this one falls into that category, and like other people's opinion.
Understood. Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you. It's a debate that we've begun at the Parks Committee. And I would agree that it is kind of difficult to say, just looking at the fact that the contract that we had approved with Global Specialty, which is the one that's going to fix the wave pool, the lagoon, the boiler system, some of the work on the Lazy River, heater replacements, those types of things, chemical tanks for Lazy River as well, is $3.1 million. So it's a big chunk of what we're going to be doing. We looked at some of the other aspects that were out there, the part about the landscaping, the furnishings, the maintenance building, building another changing room because we talked about expanding so we'd have more space for folks. We've looked at those, and we've looked at some of the other costs that go with that, and to say, okay, maybe we look at that as to say maybe we wait or something like that. That's kind of the debate that we've been having, going back and forth and determining what would be the best road forward. Obviously, we have this facility that needs some work. We know the wave pool needs some work. We're not even sure if we would be able to do the fix up that we did last time around to get it into a functioning state. Obviously, that would be difficult to do probably. So then you're talking about, if we don't do it, we're sitting with a large 9-some acres right in the middle of a park that's going to be shut down, closed for longer period of time if we don't do anything. So we are still probably sitting with the 400-some thousand that we're paying off every year for I don't know how many years that goes on. And that's on the Lazy River side. Would we say, okay, well, we can open the Lazy River, or we could open this part? But really, the wave pool is what draws people there. The wave pool is what brings the folks to the facility. So while I think we do need to have a very serious discussion as to how and what we're going to do, and the fact that we have not signed contracts yet, which is a good thing. We have approved them, but we haven't signed them. I think that will be something that we can debate about and talk about in the Finance Committee, and then come up with maybe a solution as to how we want to go. I understand exactly what you're saying, because you think, okay, we've got these other things that we really need to get done that are important, but this is kind of that's nice to have, but at this point in time, we already have how much invested in this facility. Do we just let it sit there? We got to weigh those options as well, because that's going to be what we're looking at. A big empty pool that's just sitting on the one side that everybody's going to see, no matter where they're driving by to go to Bunker through the park. But so I would agree with it. There has to be some discussion, but I think we may have some options that we can look at. And I may sound like the pessimist here, but I do believe we are going to end up on the other side of this at some point in time. I'm just thinking that we need, some of the decisions we need to make today are important for a lot of reasons, safety, financial, and those types of things. But in the end, we're going to find our way through this, and then there will be a day when Bunker Beach will be open. There will be a day when all these other things are open and they're playing NFL football and all that fun stuff. But today, we needed to take the action that we did, but I'm ready to talk about how we can figure out a way to get through it and fix what we need to get fixed. Thank you.
You know, I think there's a balance between, we have to decide how we're going to spend money in the coming months. You know, what are we going to just shut down and go in a cocoon and do nothing? Are we going to continue with maintenance plans and not expansion plans? Or are we going to balance all of it? And these are all decisions we need to make as a group. And hopefully some of it is led by our finance chair and his committee. But certainly all of us have a stake in it, Parks Committee Chair and Public Safety and all the rest of it. Everyone's got their stake in what we're going to do and how we're going to move forward. But it's important that we keep an open mind and understand that we've always come through it. The United States, Minnesota, Anoka County has always come through it, no matter what it is. We've come through it on the other side. So we have to prepare ourselves to come through it on the other side in the right position. And whether that's hunkering down and saving all our money and not doing anything, or whether it's doing just maintenance or doing some expansion while the money's cheap. I mean, there's all these options that we got to take into play. And that will hopefully be the conversation at your Finance Committee, I would hope. Have Commissioner Meisner next, and then Commissioner West.
Yeah, just to, since you were just looking for input at this point, right, Commissioner Look, so yeah, I would agree that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And some of the proposals that Commissioner Gamache talked about, I would be most likely supportive in, especially for when you're talking about making sure the pool is functioning, because it will be open at some point. So to delay it and then have further expenses when it's a project that just needs to be done, that to me makes a lot of sense. But some of these other things that Commissioner Schulte is talking about, I'm absolutely open to listening of how we can balance. But again, I don't think it needs to be all or nothing, is my personal opinion.
Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we should keep it, we should spend the money to make it so it will work the following season. But we're making decisions to spend money with having no idea what funds are going to even be available to carry through what we put in our budget. So it's different than it's been before. I mean, we've obviously not known exactly what we'd have, but because the state is going to be low, I mean, all over, government's not going to have revenues like we did before. And we don't want to tax these poor people.
And to be clear, we do have some of the numbers ahead of time. We do know what cuts the Met Council might be making. We know some of that, and that's why it will come before the Finance Committee, so they can weigh in on that. And we have a barometer. We don't know the exact future, but we have a barometer of what's happening and where we're going to be. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I agree with Commissioner West. We just don't know what the financial site picture looks like at this point to even be spending this level of money to call it responsible at all. But I'm wondering, by way of process, we approved the contracts. The contracts have not been signed. The contract signatures don't come before the board to be approved. I'm wondering what steps we can take right now to put this on hold until further discussion is had at the Finance Committee or at the board level or whatever the case may be.
I would turn to Administrator Silveraja.
Mr. Chairman, certainly had discussions with Commissioner Gamache as well as yourself and Jeff Perry. And at this point in time, the discussion has been, don't sign anything. Put it on hold until it can come before finance and you can make a recommendation to the county board, and then the county board can make that decision. at the April 28th meeting, because you have your Finance Committee meeting on April 21st. So folks have been instructed not to sign anything, so that you can really evaluate and weigh in as to how you want to proceed.
Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, one of my concerns is that while we can make these decisions at the Finance Committee, we don't know to what level financial foreclosures are going to be happening out there, what sort of revenue is coming in. Again, puts us heavy into a gambling scenario. Like, I hope it comes in, let's spend the money now, I don't think is a solid financial plan. So anyways, we can talk at that point, but I doubt that we're going to know until taxes are paid, how many aren't paid, and how that's gonna settle out, so. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Look. Any more thoughts on this item before we move on? Seeing none, we are gonna move on to the Transportation Chair Report number 2. As the chair of the committee, I recommend approval of a resolution authorizing the placement of temporary signage within the county right-of-way for the purpose of announcing business reopenings and alternative service delivery options during and following the COVID-19 pandemic restriction period. This is essentially giving restaurants and other businesses the opportunity to let the traveling public know what their hours are, what they've changed, how they offer curbside pickup, that type of thing. I have reached out to some of the cities, and most of the cities are aware that the county is taking this position. The cities I spoke with last evening made it pretty clear that they have instructed their code enforcement people that they're not going to be enforcing temporary sign ordinances during this COVID crisis. I made it clear to them that we felt the need to codify this, at least for our county right-of-way, so that there's a termination point, at which point we could say, hey, you can't have these signs up anymore. And we have something in writing that stands by that. This particular resolution before you, I believe, gives 2 months after the governor's release of state of emergency for them to remove the sign. So they'll have 2 months in addition to the actual COVID-19 period to have those signs out and then removed. I'll offer the resolution to get it on the floor. The resolution's been offered. Is there further questions or discussion?
Mr. Chair, perhaps I should weigh in on this.
Yes.
Attorney, certainly the county board as a road authority has the right to control county state aid highways and county highways. The law does prohibit advertising within county right-of-way unless the board takes an action. So I would recommend, as part of this, however, Mr. Chair, members of the board, that any permission to be placed on there be coordinated through the highway department. The reason I say that is because we will have liability issues, or we could have liability issues on sightline issues. We could have, you of course, have utilities buried under there. How far down are these signs going to go? What are they going to look like? You know, how many of them we're going to have? Are we going to have them on top of each other, et cetera? So my recommendation is, as part of this resolution, is that whoever wants to put a sign in, at least check with the highway department so they can, number one, determine the location, number two, the size, number three, just how far apart we're going to keep these, just to make sure you don't have businesses stacking their signs in front of their competitors, quite frankly. And then four, how far off the county highway you're going to allow businesses to advertise. I certainly can understand it, but I think we ought to at least have some measure of control through the highway department if we're going to do that. I'm not sure the resolution actually addresses that, but I think that should be part, certainly, of the discussion by this board, so we do keep control over it, because we could have problems as a result of it.
Commissioner Reiner and Commissioner West.
So yeah, signage always seems to be a hot topic whenever discussed. And I do understand the liability possibly with sightlines. Sightline seems to be the major concern. These signs that are being allowed are 2 by 3. That means 2 feet high by 3 feet wide typically, although it can be the other way. I would, I guess, recommend that we make some kind of height limitation on this and friendly amendment to the action today, and maybe a number of signs, because those seem to be the two concerns. And maybe it's 4 feet tall and a limit of 3 or 4 signs. And I'd leave it up to the board to discuss whether they think that's a good idea. And we could make an amendment to this action before taking it.
As I read the resolution, there is a clause that says the highway department has the right to deny you to have a sign anywhere. They can pull it, they can say you're blocking a sight line, they can say you have too many. The caveat in there is, I'm sure, doesn't meet any legal standard. I'm sure the attorneys would tell us that you can't have that type of full power, but this is a temporary resolution in my mind. This is not something that we're going to see regularly. It's kind of a one-time thing that we need to put in place to get us through this time. And Joe, if you want to address this in any way, Joe McPherson from the Highway Division, I think if we give the Highway Department the right to say, hey, look, that's in a sight line, we're going to move it, and they just actually move it 5 feet, or call the business and say that's too tall, take that down. I don't know if because Commissioner Reiner, you have some good ideas, but there's probably 50 of those caveats somewhere along the line that we should be addressing. Don't put them on 4x4s. Don't put them on rebar. Put them in 2 little pieces. Put them in the H-wire that everybody uses. But we could go on and on and on. So I don't know, Joe, do you have a better answer for us? Or?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow board members here. So I think Mr. Palumbo brings up some good points there. We do need to put some kind of regulation in there. There needs to be a process involved that they need to reach out to the highway department, get some clearance from us before they just go and install these signs. I think that would be a good due process. In regards to the signs and the height, I think it's going to be situational. So that's a good comment, but I think it'll be very situational based on what the road looks like, what the intersection looks like. So I think those are good comments as well. I think maybe there's a way to strengthen the language in the resolution a little bit regarding the authority of the highway department. Maybe we add in there that prior to the sign being placed, they need to reach out to the highway department for approval.
But as a point,
way to address it.
As a point of fact, they won't, because they're not going to know this. I mean, this is an advertising campaign. Anytime you change a sign ordinance, it takes a year to get that message out to businesses. Businesses right now are working on a shoestring, and they're going to go put a sign out. And first of all, they don't know it's a county road. They're just putting a sign out. It's near their business. They're putting a sign out. So they're not going to ask permission. We're not going to get them to ask permission. 1 or 2 may, but the majority of them are going to ask forgiveness. And I think that's what we should be addressing with this resolution. Because I don't think, as a businessman, I have enough on my plate. I don't have time to think about, do I have to call somebody before I put a sign out here? I mean, I know in the city of Coon Rapids I have to, but most businessmen wouldn't know if it's a county road or not. Commissioner Luck.
Mr. Chair, first of all, let me say that I'm fully supportive of trying to help businesses here during this time and get their information out that they're open and available if they can be open and available. What I did want to say is that City of Hopkins was pinched on a sign ordinance that they had where the bandit signs that are out there, we buy ugly houses sign, for example, they were saying that those were illegal while they were allowing realtor signs, the cantilever realtor sign out in front of your house, which is also in the right of way, by the way. They were allowing those, but they weren't allowing the bandit signs. And so they were pinched on what was called selective enforcement, that we are enforcing against you, but allowing for somebody else. And they were pinched, I think, $800,000 on a punitive damage. The city of Hopkins was at that a few years back, and while serving on the Ramsey City Council, we got real busy real quick to make sure that our ordinances were in line. But to that point, I would suggest that maybe we work with where our county roads are within given cities, that they in fact have an ordinance that allows for this, because we certainly don't want to get sideways with their ordinances. And I don't know how those ordinances look or what the legal parameters or how you avoid selective enforcement, but it's a very real deal that's out there. I'm very concerned about the drilling part of it, and a lot of people want to put in 4x4 posts or whatever, and so that's got to be addressed. And the third and final issue that I want to address is that of, I'm in the sign business and I can envision someone ordering 500 signs. Okay, you didn't say I couldn't litter these things out there. So perhaps in front of the business, or how that works, I don't know, but it's going to go crazy, I think, if there aren't controls.
Well, I think we're going to have trouble writing this resolution on the fly. I think we're going to have a problem with that. At the same time, everybody that's spoken so far has expressed an interest in being flexible and helping business. The longer we take to put this together, which would be our next board meeting now before we could authorize it, the less helpful we are to business. The harder we are at making them. The other option is to just don't enforce it. They put their signs up and we just turn our back and look the other way. That's hard to get past when times get good. And then you start enforcing it. Then it's like, well, what, I've been doing this for 6 months and now you're telling me I can't? So I think we need to have this resolution. I think we do. Do we need to have a clause in this resolution that says, by all rules and procedures established by the Highway Department? That could be the last clause. And then they can come up with the rules and procedures in the next week. And whether it's everything Commissioner Look spoke to or Commissioner Reinert or whatever it is, I just think we have to be flexible enough to tell business today, yes, go ahead and put some signs out. Yes, we want you to call our Highway Department. Certainly we put it on our website. We should put it front and center on our website. We should try this advertising campaign, knowing full well that businesses have a lot on their plate right now and probably aren't going to check for that. But at the same time, I think we need to do the resolution, grant our businesses the flexibility, and then somehow give the Highway Department the legal responsibility for writing a clause in their rules and procedures on how they're going to deal with it. I saw Commissioner Meisner and Commissioner West. Go ahead, Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do support this in philosophy in terms of supporting businesses and allowing them to advertise. I have a question for Joe and just kind of how this potentially might look like to some of Commissioner Look's commentary. What is this going to look like for your staff then when potentially there's 500 signs popping up here and there that may or may not have been asked through the Highway Department? Like, what does that look like for your staff capacity? Is that going to be overtaxing when you're obviously already working hard with other things, is my point.
Sure, good question. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Meisner. So similar to, unfortunately, campaign signs and that type of thing, it's the same type of thing where our maintenance staff, our sign staff are driving down our corridors looking for signs that aren't allowed. They don't meet the requirements. And then they either pull them out and bring them back to the highway shop and they stay there and then people can come pick them up, or they're removed and set outside the right-of-way. So it'd be a similar practice as that. It's very similar. Okay. I don't know how many people are going to take advantage of this. A lot of businesses are out of business, but I think to the chair's point, I think it's good that we support the businesses as much as we can. There's a lot of new alternatives that these businesses are coming up with. There's DoorDash. Last night I picked up food from Chipotle from my family. There were 7 people there with the DoorDash bags trying to make money and keep going. So it's flexible.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner West.
Mr. Chairman, in resolutions, do we make amendments, or can you just verbally? I would agree with what you suggested to add to it. That gives them some leeway to make it obvious when somebody asks their permission, or else we have to go out and let them know.
Thank you. I want to turn to the attorney first and then to Commissioner Gamache. Tony, just adding one clause somewhere in there with the correct legal speak that would say, subject to the rules and procedures set forth by the Highway Division.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, that would work. Just say the enforcement of this ordinance shall be done through the Highway Department under rules that they shall set forth.
All right, so if everybody understands, the current resolution in front of you with that addition is actually what I offered earlier, or it's a friendly amendment to my offer. Yep. Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking at the whereases, and the 7th one I thought kind of covered it, but I would obviously turn to the county attorney for the legal part of it. So if we need a legal part of it in there, because just for the regular placement requirements determined by the county and that type of thing, I think that pretty much covers most of it, but we'll add that, and I think it'll be a go.
Yeah, I think the one thing that this last clause could add, I mean, just by adding as determined by the Highway Department, they can determine, hey, you have to call us ahead of time to put these in, get permission instead of just forgiveness. And that could be one of their rules and procedures. And if we define that fairly clearly, put it on the website. And again, I think I agree with Joe. There's probably not going to be 100 businesses that are doing this, but there may be a dozen. And if we can save a dozen, that's part of our goal, to save every one we can. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, I think there'll be a handful that ask for permission, and then the rest of them will see that what their competitors are doing, and they'll do the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt that, but if it gets them business, if it keeps them in business, that's what we're shooting for. And if it does become a problem, Joe will make us aware of it, and we will enforce it. We'll pick up signs when they're improperly placed. And we'll store them for them. Commissioner Reiner.
And just so everyone knows, in my district, the signs are already printed and distributed and ready to go up. And I communicated last week to all 7 cities in my district, to the mayors and the council members and staff, city staff, in regard to what was coming. And as far as conflict with what we're doing with city ordinances that may not allow this, the overwhelming response that I got back from administration and elected officials was all positive. And so I don't think that there's going to be an issue. Everybody wants to help business.
And I would comment that both chambers that I spoke with have reached out to all the cities as well and are recommending that they work with their cities. The cities are all saying they're on board, as Commissioner Reinert said. So far, all the cities have been very positive about this. The resolution is before us with the friendly amendment attached. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Joe. And we will move on now to the amended additional agenda item 2, which is to consider installing glass panels at all Anoka County licensed counters. The following are the estimated costs with funds coming from the asset preservation and requesting reimbursement from FEMA COVID-19 or eligible response funds. They are listed there before you, A through E, Blaine, Columbia Heights, Coon Rapids, Ham Lake, and Ramsey. And they are $19,000 at each facility except Coon Rapids, which is considerably larger at $33,000. Final design and costs are to be completed by the week of April 20th of this year. So the idea is to get a motion to approve the installation of these pieces. Is there a motion? Motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, I see a lot of this kind of being done at restaurant drive-through windows. I see it done at Costco. It's not $19,000 worth of work. So I'm wondering why we need to go to this level if everybody else is doing plexiglass and what appears more to be of a temporary nature. In other words, their decision was, this is temporary, this will be removed at some point. We're installing the Cadillac version here perhaps for $19,000. So I'm wondering if we can get an explanation on how these funds were derived or the estimates for this project. And then also when it plans to be completed.
Administrator Silveraja.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Board members. So what I can tell you in discussing with Dee, who supervises this area, is that looking at permanent structures, because not only do we anticipate this being an ongoing issue, I think as was discussed earlier, probably not a temporary issue with the changing of the virus and so forth, and just during regular even flu season, it certainly will assist. But also even currently, it will assist with some of the challenges of people actually being able to hear. It will assist with some of the social distancing opportunities as well. So this was a rough estimate that our facilities folks put together in identifying how that might be accomplished.
And I would comment, I don't think of this as a temporary fix whatsoever. I think of this as a sound attenuating device for, I mean, if you've been at the Coon Rapids facility with, I know many of you probably haven't, but it's a loud echo chamber. And when you're standing at the counter talking, to hear what the people saying across from you and not the person next to you or the person waiting on the person next to you, it's challenging at times. And these windows would help that considerably. I think it also will help for the common cold, the annual flu. I think we lost 80,000 people to the annual flu last year. Not in Anoka County. I believe that was nationwide. But my point is, I think this is, it's a combination of a safety issue and it's a customer service issue, a quality of customer service issue. So I think long-term, this is probably a really good plan. As far as the ability to get it done quickly for COVID-19, I don't know if that's even part of the equation for me, because our license centers aren't going to be open during the COVID-19 process. Other comments? Commissioner Gamache.
I would agree with you, Mr. Chair. I think this is something that can help for the long term on a number of different issues, including the fact that we can cut down on the sound bouncing back and forth with the staff. I think would be helpful as well. And I do believe that some of the other businesses are doing it on a temporary basis, just to get through what's happening today. But long term, I think it provides some security for the employees, but also does a lot to help them service their customers so they can hear them better, and it sounds like a good idea and a good plan. I'll support it.
And I will recognize that it is much different than what I saw at Cub Foods and Costco, as you explained. You know, the temporary plexiglass with a little duct tape here and there. And while very effective at the spread right now, that's important for them. That wouldn't be my intent for doing this.
So,
Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, with regards to sound attenuation, you have a customer on the other side. Is there any thought given to being able to hear that customer through this panel?
Commissioner Look, there has been a lot of thought given to it. I don't know what the answer is yet. I don't know what Andrew and his team has worked through. Perhaps Administrator Silveraja has some answers already. I know they were talking about it as early as the beginning of last week. They were already talking about what they would do for sound transfer, whether it's the microphone speaker concept or Administrator Silveraja, is there any answer for that yet, or are they still a work in progress?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's still a work in progress.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, we
Commissioner
should
Look.
anticipate more money being requested for that?
It may have been included in these prices already, for all I know. That's why I think that bottom line there where it says final design costs to be completed by the week of April 20th. So I think we'll know everything we need to know by April 20th. So the motion today and the second today is to spend up to this amount. If it comes in over this, it'd have to come back before us, is my assumption. And actually, as I look at these numbers, I think this could probably have been done without coming to the board, because it's a low enough number, it's a low enough threshold that it could have just come through a committee, I would guess. But I'll turn to Administrator Silveraja first, then Commissioner Luck.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think out of respect for the board, thought it was the right thing to do is to bring it to you to be able to have that discussion and deliberation rather than just approve something that may not necessarily have the support.
And I appreciate that. I only brought it up because I was thinking, we're approving this for these amounts. If it comes in considerably more, obviously you would continue that respect and come back to us. If it comes in less than that, it would just have been approved at today's meeting if we vote to approve. Commissioner Look, then Commissioner Meisner, and Commissioner Reiner.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I see where some of this could be potentially airborne, which this may stop. I see where the majority of the probability of catching this is transfer of the paperwork that you're going to give to the person in there. And yes, they may be wearing gloves, but we know that it can still transfer to the gloves. We know it can still transfer to their face when they, touch their face, ears, or their nose, mouth, eyes, whatever the case may be. So I understand the goal. The goal is to prevent transmission of the virus. I don't know that this window does that. Doesn't stop it. And so unless the plan is to put your paperwork up to the deal and they can type in your information and hand you off, you're still transferring checks, you're transferring things of that nature. So I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't think it gets us out of the woods.
Commissioner Meisner and then Commissioner Reiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Well, first, I just wanted to comment with Commissioner Look. I mean, it is a physical barrier, so for absolutely, is it going to 100%, prevent transmission? No, but it is significantly helpful to have a physical barrier between people speaking. And then I know in previous discussion too, we talked about beyond COVID-19, that just in general for the flu season, for the cold, it's a good practice to have. But actually, I was raising my hand because I was going to make a comment that I thought this was on the special agenda specifically because this was a FEMA COVID-19 issue. I would think that for any issue that is specifically about COVID-19 and getting retroactive funds, that it would come before the full board.
Administrator Sabraza.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Meisner, that actually would not be the case. There are some instances where it's smaller dollar amounts, significantly smaller dollar amounts, that would not come through the board. Most of them would follow just our normal finance policy that we have in place.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner West.
Is this glass going to be on the side and in front, right? So the employees are separated?
Commissioner West, yes, that's correct.
It will not work without some sign. Yesterday I was in a Cubs store trying to talk through the plexiglass, which was, it's like this tall maybe. I had to step beside it. I purposely directed my voice to her side, not looked right at her, but I could not hear her and she could not hear me. So that's got to be done at the same time.
Commissioner Reinert, I skipped you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Actually, I was going to comment the same as Commissioner West, and that is it says final design and cost to be completed by April 20th. Final design to me because of the sound transfer issue, and I think there's going to be one. I've been in Home Depot and where they have these temporary structures and plexiglass, and it is difficult. And I do the same thing as you did, and that's step to the side and talk because you can't transfer your voice through it. And so final design to me would have to include some kind of mechanism for sound transfer so that you can speak and conduct business. Because at $19,000, I figured, I'm imagining this is going to be a structure that you probably can't lean to the side and then do what we did to get our business done. So it would have to include sound transfer. Otherwise, I think you're creating a problem while trying to solve it.
No, I think that's precisely accurate. And, again, we started discussing last week already how we fix the sound issue and what the numbers will be. I mean, if this comes in crazy high, we just don't do it. I mean, that's all there is to it. But in the meantime, it's a combination of protection of staff, protection of the public. And again, it's not just for this virus. It's for all colds and viruses, interpersonal contact in general. Commissioner Breasted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess we're only really a week away from perhaps having the final design. I personally would be a little more comfortable finding out what we're talking about before we're going to vote to expend any monies. What happens if we just wait till our next board meeting and look at the design, educate ourselves, see what's going to go on, and then vote? This isn't something that we have to have done tomorrow. Our DMVs are closed. So that is my comfort level. I would prefer to wait and know what we're voting on.
Well, we do have a motion and a second before us on this specific item. If it fails, we can bring it back with a modification on the 20th if the price is completely different one way or the other. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Look,
Opposed.
Commissioner Breasted, Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache, Commissioner Reinert.
Opposed?
And that item passes. Again, we'll have final numbers on the 20th. Hopefully they're even a little less than this, but we'll find out what that sound issue is, what we can do to make sure that's working. And if we don't have a good solution, or if the solution comes in considerably higher, we will not build this project. With that, is there anything else to come before the county board? Seeing none, we are adjourned.